what does a millennial mean when he or she or it says, "Oh, that is so meta," or "Oh, I am the king of meta," or something silly like that? Well, what they are doing? I mean, there's a number of ways you can explain it. Traditionally, you can explain it as the metaphysical. In other words, well, gee, I got in touch with something greater than myself, because millennials. Remember, millennials are the all about me generation, Generation Y, if you will, the all about you generation. They can't see the majority of us. And I say us, I'm using the pastoral first person plural. But millennials, the majority of millennials cannot see beyond themselves because they are too wrapped up in their own problems. They have not figured out how badly they have been screwed over by a lack of values not bestowed upon them by the hippie generation, which rebelled against its own parents. The greatest generation, maybe with give or take a generation in between. And so millennials, the majority of them, they're so self-absorbed, they can't imagine, this is why millennials hate the idea of a child so much. They can't imagine that kind of a commitment. And so this is why you see so-called, I'm a mom. What are you talking about? I have a pit bull, I have a terrier, I have a Welsh terrier. Actually, in the case of millennials, because millennials hate anything purebred, human or animal, and so millennials are more likely to, anyway, whatever. But sometimes, on a rare occasion, millennials have a glimpse of the eternal. They have a glimpse of the fact that their lives are total shit because they haven't done anything worthwhile. They haven't brought another child into the world, and they haven't, because they're so terrified of it, because they simply don't have the wherewithal. And when that happens, millennials describe their world in terms of technology, because that's how brainwashed they are. That's how inseparable our devices are from us as a generation. Again, I was born, I'm an older millennial, so I was kind of born when the brainwashing was kind of taking place for the first time. So I did not have a cell phone from cradle to this point, as, say, a younger millennial would. But again, it would be, you could describe it in terms of a meta tag, like an HTML tag, which is to say that so infused is the millennials' brain infused. So conditioned is it to require, to need, as a source of its mental sustenance, conditioned like Pavlov's dogs. Click, reward, click, reward, click, reward, all day long. This is what millennials do. Doesn't matter where they are, where we are, everywhere we go. We're just and just like that everywhere. So conditioned are we to require, to need this, that and freak out if anything should happen to our phones. That is it no surprise that we describe our world in terms of meta. But what is meta really? Well, meta, in terms of technology, meta is the unseen. Meta is the proverbial matrix. What meta really is, what it really stands for, and the reason millennials and our fake news brainwashed fathers and mothers and even some of our younger grandparents, reason that we're obsessed with it, this concept of meta, is because meta really means that we have a vague sense that someone somewhere is framing this story for us, someone who's not worthy to do that, a human being. But for some reason we can't come to terms with the fact that we're living inside a fake news narrative, as it were. And I know that sounds incredibly, at face value, that sounds incredibly paranoid. It's like, well, it doesn't. You can turn off the computer. You can turn off the nightly news. But it's more than that, because the brainwashing, the amount of time spent with it, is has hit such a critical mass that again, we are completely dependent upon it to the point where if we do not have our devices on us at all times, we lose it. We freak out suddenly because suddenly the millennial can't find his way home. Yeah, whereas the older, wiser generation, it's like, oh, it's just around the corner. I know where I am. It's just around the corner. Not the millennial. Millennial needs the phone for this. And further, there's a chemical dependency on the device. There's a chemical dependency on the device, and so this idea of meta. But this idea of meta, when a millennial brags as they thought it was a really deep conversation, meanwhile it's about we have the same favorite color. It's a deep conversation, for a millennial. Geez, wow, we have that. Not only do we have the same color, we have the same favorite number in common. Wow, number 2 in blue. Wow, it's amazing. Wow, it's amazing. What are the odds, right? Because this is big. This is big. So what is meta? What does a millennial mean by meta? It means that millennials have begun to just barely broach the surface of understanding that they have a problem. And coincidentally, they'll go to another YouTube video to explain what YouTube dependency is, and they'll sit through 3 ads in the meanwhile trying to understand why they're addicted to their devices. All the while just clicking, again like that rat in the Skinner box, clicking, and all the while bragging, "Oh, I'm really meta." But again, they'll just come ever so close to the tip of the iceberg, seeing the tip of the iceberg, that the medium is the message. And the message is that they're there and they have the device and they're clicking, and that this is essentially the sum of their lives, is that they're clicking, and they will never amount to any more than this if they don't have some kind of intervention, which is why we're here. I'm trying to grab you by the neck and show you, you need help. This is what Marshall McLuhan meant by saying that the medium is the message. The message is not the story that you have just been told in 45 seconds on the radio, or watched in 1 minute and 30 seconds on the television, or YouTube, or wherever you passively are brainwashed by your fake news, wherever that is. The message has nothing to do with what they're saying. The message is that if you were to look at yourself, this is what you look like right now. This is what you look like. It's not flattering. You're doing nothing. You're passively consuming content. Meanwhile, thinking, I'm really smart, I'm learning stuff, and you won't remember half of any of it. This is you. You're like the rat in the Skinner box. And it's the most undignified thing in the world. But you can't admit it. So you come almost close to having that realization. Even now, you're angry at me because I'm just the message bearer. And that's why America's Man's Man is so triggering to some people. But just remember this, that I've said this before, but I'm saying it again, because repetition is the mother of skill. That the only people who can be triggered are people who have been programmed. And you have been programmed, my millennial friends, by the unholy alliance of the fake news and the Silicon Valley FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Netflix. Why? To extract a profit from you, to sell things to you. Because a man, as C.S. Lewis said, a man who has an obsession has little sales resistance. When you do this, you are programmed to have an obsession. This is what you look like. Peter Vidala, americasmansman.com, on what is meant by the "I'm so meta" millennial.